managed to get to Quid Cash, which is your current organization?
You don't start your entrepreneurial journey only if you have a real calling and if you really.
It's about having the right idea, excellent execution plan. You need to have some experience.
Not being happy in current role is very normal. But the primary question which you have to think is whether this market, the product is market fit or not, and whether it's scalable or not.
Hello from Bangalore, India. I'm your host, Pamela, and you're tuned into Transition Story. Join us as we listen into inspiring tales from our guests, glean valuable learnings, and take action to apply them to our daily lives. Classes to earn a spot in the IT, to realizing he was in a wrong place when he joined a services company, and then dedicating 12 years to a large financial services firm. Subhash Gupta's journey has been nothing short of extraordinary. After further honing his business skills at IIM Bangalore, he made a strategic leap into the world of Fintech. First, with a leadership role at a very leading payment app firm in a product management role, and then as the co-founder of Quid. His bold decisions and unwavering passion have driven him to revolutionize the supply chain financial industry. It's both an honor and a privilege to welcome my dear friend Subhash Gupta to this show as a co-founder of Quid. Welcome, Subhash, once again.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you for having me on your show.
So tell us a little bit about your early years and about the young Subhash.
So I had a great childhood. I was born and brought up in Kanpur, UP. When I was a kid, I thought that Kanpur is the biggest city in the world. My father was in government job in BSNL, and both of us, like me and my younger brother, we used to love playing cricket, right? Okay. And we were playing cricket all day long till I reached to a point when I wrote my board exams and I got really bad marks. Such a bad marks that I cannot even tell you how much it was. And that's when the realization hit, because in Kanpur or during that time, right, in that locality, it was all about after 12 you have to either do an IIT or you have to do MBBS, otherwise you are not good for anything. So like every other person, I also joined a coaching and started preparing for IIT. Luckily, I got through. I joined BHU. During BHU, it was more about, it was first time going out. But first time when you go out of the house and do start doing something on your own, that's when you really become mature. After finishing my graduation, those days it was all about service industries. Companies come and hire people in masses. So I was also one of them. I boarded a train. I joined a service company, but within a year, I moved out of the service company and I joined a big MNC, which was opening their operations in India. It was on Fintech, wealth management. So right from the technology to business to operations, I learned a lot of things. It was a great learning experience. And yeah, then I joined MBA. And from there on, I started thinking, let's do something differently. And then I moved to a product management role at another payment MNC. And then I joined India's largest fintech corporate in a role where I was heading all the merchants. So it was a good experience overall.
I understand you had a notorious childhood, not studying very well. Would love to know that marks. I didn't know about this fact when we took it together in college. So would love to know what that marks was. But of course, very interesting journey, I must say. I'm sure during your time at Goldman, you had a pivotal moment, right? Which kind of drove you to do it. I had my motivation to get into the management course. I was a failed entrepreneur. You might have had something in your mind. So share with us what was going on in your mind.
Pamela, I'll give you an honest answer, right? I was into software engineering, right? And I was getting into the management role of the software engineering. And it wasn't exciting enough. I didn't know what all other opportunities exist outside of this. So I joined and did my MBA. And that's where I get introduced to careers like consulting, careers like building your own business, fintechs, and a lot of other things. And that's where I started thinking, if I have to make a move from my regular engineering manager kind of role to something, I need to learn a lot of things, right? And also unlearn a lot of. When you work in a big company or MNCs, right? Typically, you handle, there are large products, big products. You might be handling a small component of a product, right?
Totally agree.
Right. But when you work on startups or when you work on a very, very fast, rapid changing environment, right? you will be handling multiple things. I still remember after 15 years of work experience, I was handling one front end component of one front end and two back end components of wealth management and transaction processing. Because when I joined India's largest fintech, I was handling the entire merchant product ecosystem, right from the QR to payments to settlements to their digital ecosystem, and the learning curve becomes massive, right? Yes. So when you start looking at that, right, and India is the right place to be because in MNCs or the larger companies, you might not get opportunity to lead horizontally larger ones, right? But in the companies like startups, right, or the new age startups, you have opportunity to learn a lot of things horizontally and then pick out what is something which you like.
I'm sure our listeners would benefit from this suggestion, if I may call it. It's the truth of everyone's life working in a software product company where you are handling a small piece of the big iceberg.
Correct.
Whereas when you want to really, get into something of your own, the best thing to do is to start with a startup. Where you actually get a larger span of control. You do a lot of things on your own. And what I hear from you is MBA also gave you exposure to a lot of different professions because I remember we had a very rich, diverse batch of 2016, 2018. We had entrepreneurs, we had a lot of people who were in consulting. The learning is very mutual.
Marketing,
Sales. And we had diverse thoughts in those 2 years. Of course, I did learn a lot. And I then realized, of course, why my startup. Now, a very obvious question is, we would have expected you to really dive into entrepreneurship immediately after, right? Because you were quite ready. You chose to join a payment app company instead. And it took you 5 years to get to Quid, which is your current organization that you have co-founded. What took so much time?
That's an interesting question, Pamela. I would say something on your own is not about timing. It's all about your internal calling. When I finished my MBA, even though a lot of you guys encouraged me that you are good fit, you have lot all the experience, the internal calling was not strong. And I am saying this now because now I am other side of the fence, right? But I spoke to a lot of my entrepreneur friends, and everybody said the same thing. If you feel strongly about it, then only you do it. And that time I did not realize what it means. But I'll tell you, any entrepreneurship journey is very difficult, right? It goes through lots of ups and downs. Unless your determination and your internal calling is so strong that it can overcome all the downsides when it comes, right? It will overcome that. It's very difficult, right? It's very difficult, and that's why you see a lot of people start and within a year they wrap up and go back. I am also in a very very early stage, but it's been almost 1.5 years. So far it's going good, and I think that initial 1 year glitch is over now. And since we're on this topic, I had a different line of questioning, but I'll take the liberty to deviate a bit. You have internal calling. You know what you want to solve. What's a bigger problem? Is it finding out an idea for your journey, like you found out, and we would love to hear a little more about the problem you're solving. But what is more important? Access to capital, having the right ecosystem. I understand India is going through a startup revolution, so a lot of processes, regulations, going through, I would not say change, a positive change, because it's becoming more conducive to letting people do business in the country, encourage budding entrepreneurs like you. But if you could share some thoughts, people listening to the show, I'm sure there are many young guys out there who would love to pursue this journey of yours in their own shoes. Yeah, so let me start from the first point, like how you identify, right, whether you have to do or not do. Right? When I talk about internal calling and it comes, right? I feel anybody and everybody who spent 10 years or 15 years career somewhere always have this feeling that I want to do something big. Yes. Right? Now that big could be getting promoted or getting vertical growth in the current organization, make a change and go into other organization at a higher role, right? Or do something on your own. Now, doing something on your own is the most difficult part, right? Because you have to take that call where you will be, leaving a lot of things behind. And execution capability is on the same idea. It should not happen that you are a guy from fintech and suddenly you want to start, for example, the Kirana store, right? The Kirana store chain. It's a very diverse. Yeah. You have to have experience. You have to have experience in that domain. you should have a solid execution capabilities and good idea. There are people who, and by this much experience, you would have enough network. Right? There are people who will be taking bet on you, who will be investing on you. I mean, as we speak today, there are more than 500 micro VC firms in India very actively investing. Right? I mean, they are investing on startups. And so there are so many things to solve for. So you come with a good idea, come with a good plan, right? And don't have a plan B for yourself. That is also a lot of people
Yes, don't have a plan B.
Don't have a plan B. Don't have a plan B.
You live and die in this plan.
Yes, yes, yes. If you have a plan B and if you do something as a sidekick, it is not happening. I tried 3 times before starting this, and every time I fail. And if I do, the only thing I could have changed is I could have done 100% justice to that idea at that time. Right?
Had you done it
in
a dedicated fashion. So my key takeaway from this is, and in fact, I and you have spoken offline about me looking at entrepreneurship with a very different lens. So key takeaway is capital is not the struggle, which most of us listening to this show would think that capital is the biggest hurdle. It's about having the right idea, excellent execution plan. You need to have some experience. You need to have onboard a team that has experience.
Absolutely.
So that you can really convince the person who is investing on you that this is the right idea. I want to understand, did the people who invest in your startup bet on you as a person, your co-founder as a person, or they bet on your idea?
It's combination of both. But if I have to take a weighted average, it is highly skewed towards on people. So me and my co-founder, I take 30 seconds to talk about him as well. And I'll tell you since you talk about the team, right? And jokingly, me and my co-founder Vikram were talking. Finding a co-founder is more important than finding a life partner. When you get into a life partner relationship, right? There are social angles, there are a lot of other angles. So there are many forces which keeps you two together. When you are working with a co-founder, none of these forces, right? So the compatibility has to be super strong, right? And it's just not compatibility. Also, skills have to be matching or complementary to each, right? And there are multiple reasons. Like if there is a complementary skills, the best benefit is you get an all-rounded co-founding team. Second is you will less step into each other's shoe. Right?
Yes.
Which is a problem which we face at home also, right?
People step into each other's territory.
First is finding out the right team. So people, whenever it so happened in our case, right? When we decide to start, we didn't start on day one that we will go and start, right? So both of us have left their respective engagements earlier, right? He is a second-time co-founder. I am also a second-time co-founder. We spent around 3-4 months together, right? We traveled to more than 6 cities. We spoke to around 200 all prospective customers, right? Understood the white space, right? And spent a lot of time together sharing and exchanging the ideas. And that's when we decided, came back, and this was last year, right, December. And then we came back and said, let's do this too. And that time our conviction was so high that we will build something good, right? Whoever we speak to, just speaking to both of us, they exactly get it, what we want to build, why we want to build, and how it is going to make money for them, and how it is going to make money for the company, right? And when this thought is clear, we raised our first round in January. It was a small round, but within 1 week, we got all the commitments. And we actually got more money, and we have to say no to few people because we didn't want that much money that time. And that time only.
That's a nice problem to have.
Yeah. And that time, the entire plan, the blueprint, what we want to do was on paper, but nothing on table, right? Nothing on execution.
So for our listeners, recapping once again that people bet on people.
Yes.
You need to have a good plan. Subhash and his co-founder went and did a lot of market research to back their entire story, and the conviction was very high. So it was easy for them to find investors. I won't say easy, but it was easy to convince the investors that they found, get them to invest into the venture.
When you do early investment, which is typically called as angel or pre-seed investment, you don't need too much of capital. Right? You need only this much capital where you can build your working product. You can make your product working. Revenue or no revenue is a secondary question. It is not a primary question even in investors' mind. But the primary question which you have to think is whether the product is market fit or not, and whether it's scalable or not. These are the only two things which typically anybody who wants to invest, because people know that if you are getting into something, people will make money. everybody makes money and everybody delays making money for the other reasons.
Excellent. Very, very nice to hear that, Subhash. So we discussed about your journey as an entrepreneur. We discussed about your company. We come to the most pivotal question. How did your family respond to this decision of quitting an extremely illustrious career, having two young kids,
Yes.
and when I say family, I not only mean your spouse, but the extended family of your parents, in-laws. What's the initial response? How did people receive it and react to it?
No, I think if I have to give credit to one person, it has to be my wife. Like
You got to go get back home and get dinner.
absolutely, absolutely. But having said that, whenever people after 35, 40 years go through a lot of office stress, like same thing, mundane thing, and I used to, walk with her every evening and I used to say, this is not something I want. I moved to the other company, I changed the job, get into better role, bigger role, but after a few days again I started, this is not something I want. She asked me what you really want. I said I want to start something on my own. I'm not getting that thing what I want to do. When I informed her, right? When I actually not informed her, in fact I consulted her, right? That I want to do something like this. I think without even 5 minute gap or 2 minutes gap, she just said, "Yeah, let's do it. If you really want to do it, why don't you do it?" But the important thing is she is working, like, and she is supporting. She is earning more than me the salary which I will draw, right? My kids were okay. Kids were okay because early days when I was starting up, I was working from home, so they were very happy that I was at home. When it comes to the family, my father was not happy. To be honest, right? My father is a person who still asks me how much salary are you getting.
Yeah, because the academic background that you talk
Yes,
about,
yes,
right?
yes.
Kanpur as a city.
Kanpur as a city, what he has done entire his life. However, he is supportive, but he always tell me, why are you taking so much of stress? He doesn't think that it's not a stress. If something which you like and if you do, it's not a stress.
Yes.
In fact, if you do 20%, 20% of the work what we do as an entrepreneur in a company where you don't like the work, your stress level will be much higher.
Much higher, absolutely. It is serotonin that you are releasing because of this fun that you're having at work.
My mother was very supportive. Mother was, always let's do. But now everybody is fine, right? Because they know it's been 1.5 years. I'm doing it.
You're sustaining it.
I'm sustaining it, right? I won't say we have achieved or I have achieved to where I want it to be, but I have sustained this 1.5 years, and I think we'll go big from here.
That's a crucial period, right? Then you think of scaling. No company in the world has scaled on day one, right? Some of the iconic brands that we relate to or which we read about in our BA, they were not the brands that they were born as, right? So I'm sure Quid has a very illustrious future. Closing thoughts before we wrap up. One is, if you could go back to IIT BHU, knowing what a career at IIT could do to some people. We have some great founders from these, renowned colleges. How would you approach your life? Basically, in other words, if you had the opportunity to go back to your younger self, like Doraemon getting you back with a time machine and you do it all over again, what would you do?
I think first thing I want to tell everybody as a student, right? It doesn't matter whether you are from IIT or not from IIT. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. In my career, I have reported to a lot of people, right, who are not from IIT, not from a better education background than me, and they were really smart, and I have learned a lot of things from. It is all about whether you are curious enough to know and ask questions and solve them. That is the most important thing because whatever we read in engineering, everybody knows, right? Half of the professional industry has done engineering, but how many concepts of engineering we apply on it? Applying on
Exactly,
it.
totally agree.
So that is not important. What it gives you is probably initial confidence here. I have done something at this stage, so I will continue to do something more. But beyond that, it's nothing. But having said that, I'm part of a lot of founders community and people. I would say people who are founders and from IIT and IIM is actually a minority.
Excellent. See, that's the answer I was really gleaning to hear. That is it true that most of the founders are from IIT or IIM and completely challenge that common thought that all of us or the opinion that all of us have. IIT IIM guys are minority, which means it is about the desire to do something, having the right idea, the experience, the execution. All that you spoke about makes so much sense now. when you say this. So I'm sure people who are listening to this would be inspired. But if you had to wrap up this conversation, two or three distilled pieces of advice to any 30, 40-year old who is not happy in their current jobs or looking for a change, how do they navigate that? And if it is a fintech startup in particular where your expertise lie, what would you want people to start with and two, three key things that they should keep in mind?
I think not being happy in current role is a very normal thing, right? People should
It's
not.
more common than
It's very very common, and people may not talk about it, but the person's manager may also not be happy at that role. Person's reporting may also not be happy at that role. So it is natural. It is very natural. As a human, you cannot be happy if you are doing the same thing again and again, right? Now, important thing for anybody to check out is whether if you are not happy, how can you make it better? And it doesn't harm if you want to change the job. It's okay to change the job. Start your entrepreneurial journey only if you have a real calling and if you really need. There is one more mistake a lot of people typically do is just for the sake of getting experience, they say that now I'm a founder and I'm starting something, right? But if you're again going back to the same answer, if your internal calling and the idea and execution plan is not strong enough, it's a very competitive market in startup world as well. Every SaaS product, every services which you offer, there are many competitors, and your ability to distinguish yourself and ability to execute is the only one which will take you to the
Next level.
right? So if you don't want to start anything, I would never say that start anything. Do it. But if you want to do it, like I said, no plan B. Come up with a plan, come up with an idea. And I think 35 to 40 is the right age, in my opinion, is the right age because you have a real good experience. You understand what are the different role needs. What is the product role? What is the tech role? What is the operations? What is the business? What is the growth? Right? Company. You would have created enough wealth to secure future and created some runway for yourself. Right? Do some calculations like create your own personal runway. How much time you have which you can survive without a salary. Right? And then you think about getting assembling the right team, right co-founders. Finding co-founder is extremely important. What inspired you to find Quid? What is the problem that you're trying to solve? What keeps you awake at night about this problem? Sure. Pamela, Quid is a B2B supply chain fintech. So we solve the working capital problem for retailers, for small and medium enterprises. I'll give you an example. Right? Let's say there is a small scale industry, right? And it procures some raw material, and the finished material they give it to their customers, right? For B2B setup. Now they have to purchase raw material then and there, or if it's a trading company, they have to get the materials then and there, pay and get the materials. When they deliver it to their buyers may take 15, 20, 30, 60 days to pay them back. Now, for that much, while they are accepting the payment, they have subsequent orders for which they have to keep on investing the money and start it. Right? And that increases so their growth is limited with this working capital. And we are also a working capital solution provider, but what we do is it is more tech driven and data science driven. So we keep a anchor in place. Anchor is a person. Anchor is, for example, let's say there is a large distributor of HUL, right, who has thousands and thousands of retailers. So this is an anchor. We integrate technically with the system of the anchor. We understand the data. We do a lot of analysis on the data and find out who are the right buyers who can be extended the credit limit. We extend the credit limit to them. Now this anchor gets the money immediately. The moment they supply the food, they get the money immediately. It's like a BNPL for the retailers. And retailers have time duration, like whatever time they want to take, they can take, and they can pay us back within 90 days whenever they want. And obviously the interest rate which they pay is much lesser than the margin they pay. So they don't mind, right? And Anchor also, it's a benefit for Anchor because the money which they have got on T+1, they can use their same money to rotate that money and do multiple businesses. Redeploy that cash. So that is the problem which we are trying to solve. Like us, there are few more players in the industry. But this industry itself is very entrepreneurial, the supply chain finance. So we are making use of technology and data to do the right decisioning, to do the right integrations, and acquiring these large anchors. And through these large anchors, we are solving the working capital problem for anchors as well as their buyers.
So it's a great disruption that you're trying to create in the supply chain space. Why did it not exist in these many years? And what is different now that, or nobody looked at this problem?
So it's not that it does not exist; it exists, right? A lot of banks do it, but typically the banks and the larger NBFC, they look at the top layer, right? If I look at the supply chain, there is a manufacturer who might be procuring the raw materials. So there is a supply chain aspect and supply chain financing aspect there. Then they might be providing the goods to a super stockist. Super stockist may be giving to distributors. Distributors may be giving the retailers. So till distributor, a lot of solution exist. People, because the numbers are limited, so banks are able to execute. But the moment you go distributor and below, right, when it comes to the
That's
retailers,
where the funnel increases.
There are 13 million merchants and merchants, or I would say retailers in India. Now for that scale, it's a small ticket item, highly repetitive product. But from that scale, at this point, our banks and larger NBFCs are not ready. The only way this scale can be addressed is through technology, and that is where we fit in. Excellent. Thank you so much for that answer. Subhash, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I'm sure people listening to the show will be extremely inspired, benefited from your journey, and your true inspiration. It's an honor to host you because we share the same alma mater from IIM Bangalore. And I wish you all the best. I'm your co-founder. I would love to get with you on the show at some point. Thank you for your time once again. Thank you.